For the past couple of months, some figures have come out and criticized the MCU. Being more specific, some important directors that are responsible for some of the classics of this generation. These being Tarantino, Coppola, and Scorsese. Their arguments revolve around the true form of cinema, which can be very subjective and at the same time not that much. But let me go step by step and explain this to you. So first, let's understand why and where this criticism is coming from. We cannot deny the talent these three men possesses or the title under their names. These are movies that have raised an entire generation of filmmakers. If someone tells you they love Quentin Tarantino and you go, he's not that great, prepare to deal with a very offended person. These three directors have spoken up their minds, so confidently and so harshly because they know who they are. They are praised creators with multiple awards, and the ego is so big and it's so powerful that it can make you do and say stuff that regularly you wouldn't say. And so they believe their opinions are the right ones because they have been praised by cinema critics. They have been praised by the people who supposedly know the art, are the experts of the art. You know, these people that have studied the form of cinema and know what they are talking about. In other words, they have big egos and they have the work to back up that ego. And even Jon Favreau, the director of the first Iron Man, the first movie in the whole MCU universe, the movie we own this universe to, basically said that these directors have owned the right to have these opinions, to say these things, which I think was very merciful of his part. And in general, I think that everyone that has been involved in the MCU universe have been really respectful and patient with these three men. Now that we have this kind of obvious part clear, let's jump to the second part. Among the cinematic community, there's one big reason why the MCU movies are looked down upon. And before I jump into the more tactical and artistic side of the discussion, I need to explain the business side of cinema. Because everything in this life is one big business, of course. If there's one thing we can be sure about, is that Marvel movies are a hit in the box office, and every major production house wants that same success. Everyone wants to compete, and big production houses won't work on any movie that won't make them like a big profit. This is being proven by the whole remake era that we're currently living. They are taking big famous franchises and they are remaking the movies because they think that's a safe bet. For example, Ghostbusters had an after credit scene because they assumed they would make enough money so they could make a sequel. But of course, the sequel to Ghostbusters flopped horribly, and that's when the sequel got cancelled. Between superhero movies and remakes, original stories have been thrown aside. And I really didn't want to bring her into this conversation, but actually, Jennifer Aniston's criticism is right. She basically said that nowadays all you can see are Marvel movies, and she's not that wrong. And before you kill me, let me explain why Jennifer Aniston is not that wrong. Because one thing is the production houses and the other is who distributed the movie. Call Me By Your Name, for example, was produced by 3 medium-sized production houses, and in some countries, Sony distributed the movie and in Italy it was Warner Brothers. Now, what's the difference between distributed and produced? The producers put all the money and take care of the filming. The distributors pay to the cinema theaters to screen the movies and they decide how many screens and all that. Have you ever gone to the cinema expecting to see that indie movie that you're dying to see and there's like 10 screens playing Avengers Endgame and only one room playing that movie you want to see and it is at an odd hour? It's because of that. It depends on how much they are paying for. Marvel has much more money than small indie production houses, so Marvel will pay for 12 screens because they know they will get the money back, while the small production house will only be able to pay for 1, 2 at most. And then, small productions will pray to see their money back, while Marvel, they know they will make the money back. To support my point, I will give you some good tea. Tarantino's movie The Hateful Eight was supposed to screen in certain cinemas in Los Angeles, but couldn't because Disney had overbooked the venues for The Force Awakens, and there was no screens for his movies, including the Cinerama Dome in LA. So Tarantino hates Disney since then. But I mean, he was working with Weinstein Productions, and we do not support that man, so I'm not sorry for him at all. So Jennifer Aniston is right. There's not much variety in the cinemas and it's everyone's fault. It's our fault because we go and see Endgame 9 times, and for big production houses because it's always about the money. And this is one of the reasons why some people hate the Marvel movies, because they know what's going on, like behind the scenes, and it's not nice for some original ideas. Big production houses can bet in projects like Whiplash and such and decide to distribute the movies, but that rarely happens. Liking Marvel movies and not liking the indie type of style of movie, it's not wrong. Like, you can like whatever you like, you can spend your money however way you want. If you want to go and watch Avengers Endgame 10 times, please do it. On the past days, Scorsese decided to go further with his criticism about Marvel movies being nothing but theme parks. And quoting Mr. Scorsese here, he said that cinema is an art form that brings you the unexpected. In superhero movies, nothing is at risk. And you can yell,
"The whole world is at risk, it doesn't get any bigger than that."
And actually, no, in Marvel movies, not much is at risk. Let's take Jurassic World, the first one for example. Do you remember that funny scene of the guy who picks up his margaritas and run away as the dinosaurs are basically eating everyone? I can bet you that you weren't worried about everyone in there. I can bet you were entertained. You were having so much fun watching that scene because it was entertaining. But let me tell you, people were dying in that scene. People were getting eaten alive. I mean, we got that horrible scene with the assistant that got eaten by 2 dinosaurs. That was fucking heavy. But you weren't worried. You were entertained. It was shocking. You weren't like,
"Oh my god, what are we gonna do without the margarita guy now?"
You weren't, and that's what happens with Marvel movies. And those are the risks that Scorsese is talking about. He's talking about taking something the main character truly loves, something we have seen develop, something that we have grown attached as an audience, and watch them die, watching them being a danger. That's what Scorsese was talking about. If we had someone important, a loved one, and we know they were at risk, we know that's something important to our protagonist, something more specific is at risk, then you will be at the edge of your seat. You will be like, what the hell is going to happen next? Infinity War was so heartbreaking because you saw your favorite characters die. People you cared about in the movie. It wasn't just some random citizen. It was the characters you have been following. And one of the most memorable moments in the Infinite Saga was the "I don't feel good, Mr. Stark." It was a meme, but it was heartbreaking because Tony cared for the kid, and you knew just how much he cared. But we're talking about the last couple of movies out of 11. In superhero movies, the fights are so amazing and so well made, but you know they will survive. You know that basically at the end of the day, they will probably make it. So why does Scorsese say these are nothing but theme parks? Because the only thing we get are some cool visuals, well orchestrated fight scenes. At the end of the day, they will win. The good guy will always win, no questions asked about that. So basically, is this one big formula repeated over and over and over again? Is something bad happens, we have to go and have this epic fight, we win, end of the movie, after credits scene, get ready for the next one that will basically be the same. The movies Scorsese likes are movies that question the morals of the main character. They actually take something important to the main character and they put it at risk. They treat these big social and human traits that usually you don't get to see in the Marvel movies. Does that mean that Marvel movies are not cinema? Absolutely not. Actually they are, and it's all in the narrative. So stories can be plot-driven or character-driven, and Marvel movies are character-driven. Character-driven stories can deal with inner transformation or the relationships between the characters. You love the story not much because of the plot, but because of the characters. Marvel has great characters. Iron Man is great, charismatic, but his relationship with his fellow Avengers is what made it all better. So you can see them fighting and saving the world 100 times because you love the characters. What Scorsese means by the Marvel movies being theme parks is that the plot is just for fun, right? Meanwhile, Scorsese can create great characters, but truly the plot is much more important in his movies. That means his movies are more plot-driven, and that's the big difference. At the end of The Wolf of Wall Street, Leonardo DiCaprio could have died, and that could have been okay, but it was so interesting to see what he was going to do next and how the story was going to develop. It wasn't much about if he made it until the end or not. It was about what would happen next. You were more interested in the plot. And don't get me wrong, that character was fantastic, but the plot was really what was driving the story. And that's the thing with Marvel. Maybe the movies don't follow your style or narrative, but they are visually amazing, the stories put together perfectly, and they sure know how to create lovable characters. And when Scorsese says that the Marvel movies are nothing but theme parks, what he means is that the plot is always the same. The plot only exists to entertain you. The criticism about the Marvel movies could also refer to the silent language of framing. The way you frame a scene can tell a lot of the character or a situation if it's done right. But for me, or even for Martin Scorsese, to claim there's no cinematic language in the Marvel movies would be pretentious. The MCU movies have been directed by different directors, and we would have to analyze every single MCU movie deeply, and then this video would be as long as The Irishman. At the end of the day, cinema is also art, and art can be subjective. Really here, the criticism is valid and you might not like the Marvel movies. Gosh, I'm not a fan myself. But whether you like them or not, Marvel is indeed cinema. Thank you for watching, that was the end of the video, and if there's something that maybe I missed or maybe you can add to the conversation, please do in the comment section. And remember that I am also on Twitch, so you can join me there. And with that said, goodbye everyone. Until the next time.